Hi, welcome to episode 215 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura, and I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where I sell my handspun yarns. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come over and joined us, please do. Welcome! This is not my normal recording schedule and not my normal recording. It is Wednesday, January 23rd, and I am late and early, if you count it that way. Normally I record on Sundays, so I'm about a week and a half from our last podcast recording, and tomorrow morning I'm going to get on a plane and be gone this weekend, so I'm about a week and a half from our next recording, so I suppose this is the perfect time to record. So hi, how are you? If you are new to this podcast, this will be sort of an abbreviated version of what I normally do. I talk about tea, life, and what I'm knitting and spinning. Today's content will have a little bit of life, a tea, and only knitting because I have been away from my spinning wheel and will be away from my spinning wheel, so I don't have a lot of that. So last time I talked to you, it was about a week and a half ago. We had just been kind of gotten a bunch of snow unceremoniously dumped on us. I worked from home for the beginning of the week. We got cleared out. The temperatures were sort of stable. Then we got the word that we were supposed to have another blizzard last weekend, or this past weekend, just a few days ago. And I was supposed to go to a conference in Phoenix on Saturday. And so late on Thursday, I actually rebooked my flight for Friday and went out a day early so I did not get stuck in the city. And I went to Phoenix, Arizona, which is in the southwestern United States, for those of you who are not from the US. It is a sort of desert area, and this time of year it is very mild in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which sounds like heaven to those of us who are in the frozen Midwest right now. So I packed up my bags and went, and there were palm trees and sunshine, and I did not need my winter coat all weekend. And it was lovely. I went to Creativation basically for my company, which is Stitchcraft Marketing. And we went looking for new clients and to support clients who exhibited at the show. Creativation is put on by the Association for Creative Industries, and it involves kind of a little bit of everything. So it is knitting, it is card making, it is food art and stamping and scrapbooking and all kinds of crafts. So it was kind of fun for me because I have been to a variety of knitting shows. But I have never been to a craft show that features other crafts, so that part was kind of exciting for me. It is an industry show, so it's not consumer focused. Mostly you're there to meet people, make contacts, and for the retailers to place orders. But we did lots of business meetings and lots of wandering, and I got introduced to the Make and Take, which is a feature of a lot of industry shows. I got a really cute, and I forgot to bring them because I'm sort of, I'll explain in a second, I'm in between suitcase unpacking and packing. I got a few little crafty projects. I got a little sloth out of felt to sew and embroider, and I got a little cat ornament kit, and I got an ink stamp pad and a few other little goodies, but I mean, it wasn't a consumer show, so I didn't go to purchase. I also got some yarn, which we'll talk about because that's a whole other story. So that is kind of what I did. I came home late Monday night. I got home about 1 a.m. and went to bed. Yesterday was my husband's birthday, and he left for London yesterday because he is going for 2 weeks for business. And I worked yesterday and today, and tomorrow morning I take off again. And it is very, very cold here. We had a little bit of snow last night, lots of rain, some ice. It is in the teens today. Most of the schools are closed. And the low tomorrow is going to be 4 degrees. That's right, single digits. I'm hoping that I can get out of here. The only real issue will be, depending on what the climate does, whether or not there will be ice. Today the roads, by now, actually midday, it's about 2 o'clock. By now the roads are actually pretty clear, so I should be able to get to the airport and get out again. And I will take an overnight flight to London, and on Friday I'm going to meet up with a friend and a podcast viewer, and I think we're going to go have some tea and maybe go to Loop London. And then this weekend, my husband and I will sightsee like tourists. We booked a bus trip to go see Stonehenge. And then I think we're going to pub crawl and maybe do a few museums on Sunday. Like I said, he is working there, so during the weekdays he has to go to work. And then I will leave early Tuesday morning and come back home, and then he'll follow me a little bit later. I think he comes home on either Saturday or Sunday next week. So that is what's going on. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of in and out of suitcases. It's a lot of different climates. So to me, Arizona felt warm this time of year. I know it's chilly for them because they get up to 110 or 120 in the summer, which is just crazy. But it is, I came home and it's really pretty cold here in, you know, single and double digits. And we had a dusting of snow last night. And then I'm going to England where it's supposed to be in the 40s and rainy. So it's kind of a lot of different climates, a lot of different clothes. And so that is what's going on. I will finish by saying that I am wearing, this is called the Moxie pullover. It is by Amy Christoffers, I believe, and I knit it in my handspun a while ago. And I'm wearing kind of a weird outfit today because I have packed a lot of the things I want to take. And a lot of the things that I might have worn are dirty. And so I'm wearing fleecy tights and a summer sundress and a sweater because it's what I have, and I already packed my jeans, so yeah, so it's a little weird. So let's go to the tea. Let's do the real podcast now. I thought this was going to be a really quick one, but I guess maybe I'm going to chat on forever. While I was in Arizona, I had several hours to kill until my flight, and Liz FM on Instagram, who has been on the podcast before with me, we usually do episodes in January, she lives in Phoenix, and she had the day off, and graciously came and picked me up, and one of the places we went, among others, was Tea Time Scottsdale. So this is their French spice tea, which is black tea, pu'er, oolong, chai spices, vanilla, and spearmint. They are in Scottsdale, Arizona. It is a lovely tea shop. You can order from them online or go in person. I got this French spice, and I also got an organic coconut. I am drinking it in my Tea Source mug, which was a gift from a lovely friend, and it says, "Don't even think about putting coffee in there," and ain't that the truth? Although it's pretty funny because, so I'm not much of a drinker. I mean, I'll drink maybe like one drink socially, but in general, I don't drink a lot. And I'm also not a huge coffee person because, of course, I'm a huge tea person. But when you're traveling, particularly in a convention center and elsewhere, they did have tea available, but mostly it was Starbucks. So each night I had a drink because we were going out and doing meetings and whatnot. And then every day I had a Starbucks coffee. And it was a very weird several days because that's not my usual mode. But now I am back to tea. I am drinking French spice from Tea Source. I'm sorry, from Tea Time Scottsdale, and it is delicious. I don't know that I've ever had chai with mint, but it's kind of an interesting finish. It's like spicy, and then it's got just a little bit of a cool edge at the other end. That's very good. So let's talk about all the knits. I've finished some small things, I've started some big things, so let's talk about it. Finished. I started and finished Roxy's Valentine's Day socks. These are, this is Knitterly Things Vesper in her, I believe, 75-25 merino nylon sock base. They are in the colorway Joyful Noise, which technically is a Christmas color, but because of the red and pink and white, I'm knitting them for Valentine's Day. As you remember, I knit these as my Christmas Eve cast-on socks and just finished them last week. And so now I have knit Roxy a pair. I knit Miles some socks a few weeks ago. So I have the kids' socks ready to go. I started when Roxy was little, sending her a Valentine's Day package, and I have continued through the years. Typically, I do something a little hand knit. The last couple of years have been socks for both kids. I send a few pieces of chocolate for them to share, and then usually I pick up a little something else to stick in the package. I'm thinking I might pick them up t-shirts in London, or something London themed to throw in their package. So those are done and ready to mail as soon as I get home, so I am excited about those. Somebody asked me what I do for my kids' socks, how many stitches I cast on. Honestly, it varies. I use the Tin Can Knits patterns. a lot of which are free because they are such a good sizing reference. They start with small children all the way up through adults. I usually use their numbers. Now, some of their socks are worsted, so if I can't find a fingering weight or, sock yarn size, usually what I'll do is I will do the math and just adjust the gauge. So if it's 20 stitches out of a worsted weight yarn at 5 stitches to the inch, and I've got my sock yarn at 7 stitches to the inch, then I will just do the appropriate math and get my cast on number. The last pair of socks that I knit for Miles, I believe I cast on 44 stitches on size zeros. These are 48 stitches on size zeros. I'm hoping they will fit her. I've been going between 48 and 52, but 52 is almost 56, and that's my foot size. So I feel weird, but I don't want them to be super tight. I'm also messing with foot length. The last tracing I got of her foot said that she had either 6 or 6.5 inch long feet. So most of my socks I knit to usually about 5.5 inches and then start the toe, because I figured that was a while ago. I think it was it wasn't this past October. It was probably sometime over the summer. So I assume she's grown some. So I just keep adding another 1/2 inch or so to the socks and wait for my sister to tell me if they're too big or too small. If they're too big, really not a big deal because she'll grow into them. If they're too small, sometimes her brother can have them. So it kind of works out. So that is what I'm doing. And those are those socks. The other thing that I finished, and this was just because I do a lot of conference calls now, and some of them are with clients, and so I don't usually knit on client calls, but we have a lot of team calls, and so I find myself with a little downtime, and I've been keeping a simple project, although this was not super simple, I've been keeping a simple project near the computer just so that I have a little something to put a few stitches on when I'm sitting at the computer, and I have a bunch of leftover Appalachian baby cotton from various projects that I have done over time. I have reviewed their yarns a few times, and I just have a bunch of half balls left, so I've been trying to knit some washcloths because they have really beautiful cotton yarn, and I will preface this by saying that they are a client of mine and I also review for them, but their yarn is really nice, and it is nicer than sugar and cream, so it's a lot softer, it's a lot easier to knit on my hands. So I decided that I was going to turn some of the leftovers into washcloths for me because they are so soft and lovely and I want them on my face. So the first washcloth that I knit is a free pattern on Ravelry, and again, this was not a super simple pattern to knit. It is built modularly and with short rows, and it's just a lot of little pieces, so it took me a while, and I kind of had to keep looking at the pattern, which is not great for a conference call. But I did finish. This is the Water Lily pattern. It is by Sybil R. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I used the Appalachian Baby organic cotton yarn. It is a sport weight yarn. I believe I used size 5 needles, and it is in the silver and blush colorways. So it's just kind of subtle and simple, but it's sweet. And I have another washcloth cast on in this, and I'm just going to work on these over the next several weeks. I'm not really into dishcloths and washcloths. I like them, but I don't knit a ton of them. But I've been following along with Yarn Hoarder, and she does her 52 dishcloths a year, and I will not do that many. That said, I have a bunch of the Appalachian Baby, and then I also have a bunch of sugar and cream. And I was thinking, what if I just kind of kept washcloths going on the side as projects at the computer or whatever, and then I have a stash of washcloths for myself and to give away as gifts. I think I've showed you before, I really like that leafy washcloth pattern for to give with some baby shampoo for a new baby gift where I want to do a little something handmade, but I don't have a lot of time or I'm not super close to the person. So I was thinking I might as well do up a bunch of washcloths and such, and then have them ready to gift, because I also have a friend who makes yummy handmade soap, and I think washcloths and handmade soap make a great gift as well. So again, this is the Water Lily, and details are on my project page. It was a fun knit, although a little bit of effort because you had to individually shape each petal, and then you started at one side and kind of built on modularly. It was a fun knit. I just don't know how soon I'll do this one again. I've been trolling the Ravelry archives to try and find a bunch of different patterns. So the next one I have is like a cabled sun. It looks really cool. But I tried to cast it on. So when I left here to go to Creativation, the only flight that they could get me on was a 5 o'clock in the morning flight. going to Phoenix. So I had to get up at like 2:30 in the morning and drive to the airport at 3 in the morning. And I cast on, it's interesting because that washcloth has a picot cast on, and I managed to get through the picot cast on, and then as soon as I had to start, it's got a chart and it's basically knit. It's a circular sun and you start at the outside. This is a free pattern, so I'm not giving too much away. Anyway, I believe it's a Knit Picks pattern. I'll put a link in the show notes. You picot cast on for the outer edge and then you work in, so each repeat of the chart is kind of pie wedge shaped. And I couldn't count on the first row. The first row of the chart was only knits and purls, no cables, no nothing, and I couldn't count and messed it up. And at that point, I'd been up for almost 24 hours, and I was like, you know what? We're just not going to do this anymore. So I need to go back and fix that, but that will be happening. So let's talk about the knits. Let's start with what was already on the needles. The first thing that was on the needles when I left is my Sizzle Pop shawl. I don't know that I added that much to this. I think I maybe added one more repeat, possibly two since we talked. I just don't remember. It's been kind of a crazy couple weeks. This is the Sizzle Pop shawl by Leslie Ann Robinson. I am knitting it in a Yowza Deep Sea Jellyfish and a CJ Coho called Opulence. It is a gray yarn, and the Yowza is worsted, like a light worsted weight, and the CJ Coho, I believe, it's a Polworth silk, and I believe it's a DK weight. And I hoped that the gray would tone down the pink, and I think it's doing a lovely job. This is the main side. The pattern calls for fingering weight yarn, and I am knitting it in worsted weight yarn. So it is going to be a big, heavy, cozy shawl. That does not bother me in the least. I obviously will not knit as far as I would have with fingering weight because it will be so much bigger. My plan is to see how far I get and what I like it. If I feel like it, I'm going to try and finish the Deep Sea Jellyfish. If it gets too big for that, then I'll stop sooner. The pattern calls for 16 repeats of the chart. I assume I will get nowhere near that just because I'm using such a larger gauge yarn, but I am just following along and it is lovely. It is a pretty soothing knit. I don't screw up that often. I have not had to pull back that often. I really have not put in lifelines for the most part. I have had to pull back a row or two if I have to, and so I've just been letting that lie. I'm not too bad at fixing my mistakes in brioche. Honestly, the biggest thing is occasionally I forget an increase. And when you forget an increase, by the time you figure it out, which is usually like 2 rows later, which is actually 4 rows of knitting later, because in brioche you knit each row twice, once with each color. By that time, there is not enough yarn for me to like fudge an increase, which is potentially the way I would do it. I would just drop back down and try and increase and use a crochet hook to bring it back up. In brioche, that does not work because there is nowhere near enough yarn there for that. Because you're already well past it. So it's not like you can kind of fudge it on the next row. So those I have had to pull back, but otherwise I am on track. This one has seen almost no love. It probably got maybe a night or two's worth of work after I podcast last, but I have not even touched it since then. It just lives on my couch. It is my, not that I'm not enjoying the other things that I'm knitting, but this might actually be the favorite thing that I'm knitting right now. And so this is kind of my carrot. So like I have a bunch of other sample knitting projects and other things that I should be doing for review. So what I have been doing is saying, okay, knit on the project you should knit on for half an hour or an hour or a pattern repeat or whatever, and then you can work on this one. So this will not see more work until I come back from London. I would love to take it with me, but I actually have a couple other things that really need doing, and one other that I'm taking with me. And because it's a worsted weight shawl with 2 big skeins, oversized, like basically 2 double skeins of worsted, it's like 4 skeins of worsted, and it's not the lightest to travel with. And I'm also not sure that like on overnight flights it's the thing that I should be doing, because when I get tired, this patterning totally goes. So, but that is Sizzle Pop by Leslie Ann Robinson. I am loving it. And I was speaking to a friend today who said, she said to me, I have too many projects on the needles. February is a finish it February month. And I said, oh, Finishuary. So February is for finishing. I probably will not cast on anything new because I have 5 or 6 or 7 projects on the needles right now. So it's not going to be an official knit along. There won't be official prizes or anything. But if you want to join me in February, I'm going to finish all these wonderful projects that I have cast on so I can use them. So that is one. The second project that I am working on is for review, and I showed it to you last week. Please excuse the crinkling because I've kind of put this back in the bag. I showed you that I was going to knit some thrummed mittens with Briggs & Little Super in this bright magenta, and then the Briggs & Little Country Roving, which is very, very loosely plied. It is a bunch of strands of roving in here, and they are loosely plied, and you can knit with them held together, although I wouldn't use this for seaming or anything because it's not terribly strong. But what I am using it for is to put the thrums in my mittens. So let me show you, because I managed to finish one before I left. And this is a thrummed mitten. Many of you will notice that I put a photo on my Instagram and everybody said it was adorable. Just for relative scale size, this is my hand, this is the mitten. It is way too big for my hand. When I put my hand in, I have probably an inch of room up at the top, and same with the thumb, and I don't really care. The pattern is called Molly's Mittens. It is by Susan B. Anderson. And she wrote the pattern for super bulky yarn, which is what I was looking for. Her pattern does not include thrums. It includes some striping. But what I did is I just ignored these striping instructions because that's just knitting with different colors of yarn, used the pattern, and instead of striping, I went ahead and added thrums. So for those of you wondering what thrums are little bits of wool, and I'll show you in just a second. I'm trying to get this right side out and it's kind of a tangled mess. Thrums are little bits of wool loops of wool that you knit into your knitting. And they create, on the outside, they create they echo the little V's. So you wrap them as you're knitting the stitch, you kind of wrap it and knit through it as well. So it creates the little V's, or they look like little hearts. Or in French, a lot of times this action is called fleas, although I don't know if they use that to refer to, I'm probably confusing things. I don't know if they use that to refer to thrums, but I know that in a lot of French patterns, if you're using color work and you're just doing one stitch colored in a sea of, like on your main color, they call them fleas because they're just little bits. What you are doing is wrapping loops of yarn along with to create this fuzzy inside. And this fuzzy inside is super, super warm. It makes for a pair of crazy, crazy warm mittens. And then usually the inside's kind of felt if you're using wool. Which Country Roving is. It's 100% wool. And usually they kind of felt together and they create these super thick, super warm mittens that look super crazy. So this is the inside of my thrummed mitten, and I will be starting a mate as soon as I get back. This is a review. It's supposed to be up in January. I'm hoping I'm going to make it. The mitten itself, because it was such a big yarn and big needles, did not take me that long to knit. It only took me a night or two. So I should be able to crank that out pretty quickly. And basically what I did is I took, so the Country Roving is 5 strands. Each strand looks a little bit like this, and you can kind of pull them apart. And what I did is for my thrums, I used 2 strands. And what you do is you take a length like so. I did not measure it. I just kind of eyeballed it. And you fold the ends in towards the center. And then what you do is you fold it in half. So you've got this little loop. And this little loop is what I loop over my needle as I'm making a stitch, and I knit that in, and that's what creates that little V pattern on the other side. And then all of this little bit is sticking inside, which is what you see. So that's kind of the anatomy of how you create thrums. There are a variety of thrummed patterns on Ravelry. I did not find one that I really liked the measurements for in the super weight. There was a thrummed mitten pattern for super bulky. And I started knitting it, and the needles were a little bit too big, so I felt like the cuff was super, super loose, and it was kind of see-through, and I wasn't sure that I liked that. And you don't thrum on the cuff, you thrum starting above the cuff. So I switched to Susan B. Anderson's pattern. It is not surprising to me that they are large on me because it is written roughly for a women's size medium hand, and I have a very, very small hand. I'm only 5'3", so my hands are really not that big, so it's not terribly surprising. But I just followed the mitten pattern through, and I probably should have ended it a little bit sooner. Basically, my philosophy on this is, first of all, these are big, fluffy mittens. You're not going to have a lot of dexterity in thrummed mittens mittens anyway. They are for when it's really, really cold out. So I may find them just fine for my use. I'll have to try them once or twice and see. And then if they are not useful for me, I will give them away. We have a couple local domestic violence shelters, and sometimes I take, every so often, I go through all my knits, I wash them, I observe what has gotten a lot of wear, what has not gotten a lot of wear, and I donate items that I've never really worn and items that are gently used. I clean them, I put them in Ziploc bags with tags of what they're made of and what size they are and how they should be washed, and then I take them over to one of the shelters. And the last time I took those kinds of things in, it was kind of funny because I called to say I was bringing, to see if they would take donations of winter items, you know, hats, scarves, sweaters, whatever. And the woman said, yeah, we do. And I went over and met with her, and I'm not sure what she was expecting me to show up with, and I'm sure that she had no idea what she was getting, but I brought in several bins of Ziploc bags of just stuff that I had knit, charity hats and various other things. And she was like, oh my God, this is great. They're going to fight over this. So, I like to donate things, so if they don't fit me, it's not a big deal. But, like I was saying, these are Briggs & Little Super in magenta and the Country Roving. The Country Roving is actually surprisingly soft. I might be able to get away with a sweater for myself out of it, although it is a super bulky, so it would be a little bit like knitting a sweater in Lopi in terms of lightweight, woolen, barely spun, roving, and but it's super chunky. But it is remarkably soft. A lot of the Briggs & Little yarns are really like durable outerwear yarns. I would say the Super, even though it's plied, it's durable, more outerwear. But the Country Roving is really lovely to work with. So that was kind of already a review. I'll do a review when I finish, but that's what I've got. These are Molly's Mittens by Susan B. Anderson. I am knitting them on size US 10s with Briggs & Little Super in magenta and Country Roving in light gray. So that covers what was on the needles before I left. Let's talk about what I cast on once I left and what I got once I was there. For a while now, I have wanted to knit a boxy. Boxy is a big, oversized sweater, kind of boxy-shaped sweater from Joji Locatelli. Do I have the, well, you can kind of see it. I didn't print out all the pictures because my printer's low on ink and, you know, but this is the sweater, if you can kind of see it. It's kind of a big boxy pullover. It's a little bit cropped. It's very wide, and then it has sort of form-fitting sleeves. I opted to do the kind of crew neck as opposed to, or the kind of rounded neck as opposed to the V-neck. And I'm doing the fingering weight version. There are worsted weight versions. There's a kid version. There are a million versions of this pattern. But I'm just doing the plain old boxy. I actually cast on for this twice. I cast on for it. Oh, well, let's talk about the yarn I'm using first. I am using Willy Wonka Fiber Arts. This is her Gaia base, which is 100% super, is it superwash merino? Yes, it is. And it is in the colorway Mulberry. 100 gram, 400 yard skeins, and the colorway is absolutely stunning. I don't know if the camera will be able to pick it up. It is, no, it's just not. It is kind of a bluey, magenta-y purple. This is looking a little bit bluer than it actually is, but it is absolutely lovely. I have some photos on my Instagram, and that will, those are a little bit better color-wise. Boxy is huge. The smallest size in circumference is 64 stitches around. The size that I was supposed to make for my bust size was 68 inches around. My bust generally is a 38 to 40. So that would have given me almost 30 inches of ease. I cast on all of the stitches before I left for Creativation, figuring it would be a good, basically it's just going to be miles of stockinette in the round. And I cast on and I knit maybe an inch or so into the sweater, and I looked at it and I was like, this is ridiculous. This is going to look like a clown car. And I am not knocking anyone who knits it as written. It is not the right look for me, and I pulled it off, and I'm not even sure that I was getting appropriate gauge. I'm using her needle size and fingering weight, but I didn't swatch because it's going to be a big oversized sweater anyway. And that was probably a problem. So what I did is I took measurements from that inch that I knit, And then I was actually wearing another oversized sweater. I was wearing my Wolf River, which is a bulky weight sweater, but I was wearing it, I had brought it with me because I had worn it the day I left because it was so cold. I didn't need it in Arizona. But I laid it out on the bed and I took a tape measure and measured it across, and basically I was looking at like a 48-inch sweater that I really liked the way it fit. So what I did was I gave myself a little bit more ease. I went up to about 52 inches, and then based on my gauge swatch, I calculated my cast on, and I cast on. So my sweater is not going to be nearly as boxy as it is, which is actually probably okay because I'm not sure I had 100%, I'm not 100% sure I had enough yardage. So basically what I did is I just shortened the circumference. Now I was always going to knit kind of this, I was always going to knit the smallest size because for a while I was like, okay, I'll just knit the 64-inch size. I was always going to knit the smallest circumference size, but then I was going to knit my size for the vertical adjustments because I've heard that the armholes are not very forgiving in that. So I was going to knit either the 38 or the size 40 for the armholes just so that I had the vertical length that I wanted. And the vertical length is just measured in length that's not counted in rows. So my row gauge is not really an issue. I just have to keep measuring. So I cast back on and I'm maybe an inch and well, I'm probably close to 2 inches. There's a few rows of ribbing at the bottom and then what I have done. And so I am just knitting this roundy, roundy, roundy. And I have to get to 16 or between 16 and 18 inches. I haven't entirely decided before I split for front and back for the armholes. So this project is going with me because I feel like it's going to be a delight to knit. 4 skeins of fingering weight is not that bulky, and this is just going to be this is for my selfish knitting. This is a pattern I've always wanted to knit, yarn that I held aside for the right pattern to come along, and I am super excited, and this should be pleasantly loose, but not like crazy oversized, and I think that's going to suit me much, much better. This is also superwash, so it will grow. This is a really, really nice base. It reminds me a little bit of Mad Tosh Merino Light or Hedgehog Skinny. I guess I haven't really tried Hedgehog Skinny singles, but that reminds me of what it looks like. It is a single and superwash merino and just absolutely lovely. So that is what I'm doing and what I will be doing on my trip. So you'll get to see more of that when I come home. And that is living in my Knit and Stitch Bits bag. So the final thing, look at this. I was just going to give you a quick fly-by-night catch-up before yeah, we're at 32 minutes. Sorry, folks. So we went to Creativation. Primarily, it is for big retail stores to shop. And because it's not a yarn-focused show like TNNA, we didn't have a lot of small indie dyers. But there were a few, one of whom is Zen Yarn Garden. And I will preface this discussion by saying that Zen Yarn Garden is a client of mine. And I have also knit with their yarns before, and I really like them. So this is Zen Yarn Garden. And they had a booth at the show, and they were talking about how they need more samples for the booth. And I said, oh, I would knit a sample for you for the booth. And she said, you would? And I said, yes. And I should say that because this was an industry trade show, there wasn't a ton of stock in most of the booths. They had like 1 skein of each kind or 2 skeins of each kind or a skein of each color or whatever. But there wasn't like, this isn't like a consumer show that's stocked for buying. So they had a setup, and she said, would you come back towards the end of the show before you fly out, and I'll give you some yarn to take home with you, and then I won't have to ship it. So yes. So today I'm going to show you, I'm actually getting paid in yarn as well. So there is other yarn that came home with me that's for me, but I'm just going to show you for the project that I am doing. Zen Yarn Garden recently released a shawl, a brioche shawl. It is called Wrapped in Brioche. And they released it as sort of a co-creation, or, well, I guess it's not really a co-creation. It was a project that they sent to Stacy Perry of Very Pink Knitting, and Stacy did a video on it and a tutorial about how to learn to knit brioche. So Wrapped in Brioche is a free pattern on Ravelry. It was designed by Roxanne Yoon, who is the owner owner and dyer and creator at Zen Yarn Garden. And in order to launch the Wrapped in Brioche shawl, the Wrapped in Brioche shawl is a pretty simple brioche shawl. It is triangular, and it is worked in 2 colors of yarn. And Zen Yarn Garden has been working on tonal, well, mostly gradient. I would say gradient blanks. And so they are designed to be used with the Zen Yarn Garden Lux Blanc. And the Lux Blanc is their Serenity Silk Plus, which is their 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, 10% silk. So it is absolutely divine. Regularly, the base comes in 100 grams and 500 yards? I think 500 yards. So that's the normal put up. These blanks are actually 150 grams, so they are 750 yards. And they are absolutely beautiful. The 2 blanks that she gave me, and I have to remember which goes with which, this one is called Luminous. And if you're not familiar with blanks, I think I've talked about this before, but blanks are knit, basically where they take the yarn and they make a knit fabric and then they paint the knit fabric. And then as a knitter, you can unravel it and knit from it as you go, or you can wind it up into a cake. Or if you really want to, if it bothers you knitting with yarn that's super crinkly, you can skein it and then you can wash it and then work with the yarn once it's not so kinky from being knit up. But I am choosing to work with these in blanks. Some dyers do double blanks, like sock blanks, so that you can knit 2 socks that are identical. These are single strand. So they're designed to be used in shawls, basically, and they're gradients. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's like purple here and brown, and this is called, what did I say this was called again? I have 2. This was called Luminous, and it goes into brown and some greens, and more browns and more purples and brown and green. So, and these are absolutely freaking amazing. I was joking that I was just going to wear it like a scarf just as is because it's merino and cashmere and silk and they feel so good. Anyway, I love her color sense. So this is the first color. And then the second color is called Woodlands, and it is green and black. So it is greens and blacks and browns and more greens and blacks and browns and more greens. So these are the 2 that I am knitting with. Like I said, brioche is a 2 color. I am knitting them off the blank, so basically I am unraveling as I go, and the resulting yarn is super kinky, but that will wash out in blocking, and brioche is a fairly loose knit anyway, so I'm not really concerned like that I'm not getting the tension right. Some people prefer not to knit with it in socks because they'd like their tension to be tighter. Anyway, so this is the very, very, very beginnings of the Wrapped in Brioche shawl. Let me figure out which side is I believe this is the right side. The colors are really close at this point because they both start at green. I think when I get into the purple and, I mean, some of the black shows through, but the colors are super close at the very beginnings of the skeins. And like I said, she picked these skeins out. So this is the very beginning of the Wrapped in Brioche shawl. There is a center spine and then it just grows outward. And I am using this kind of, this side is the light green, which is the Woodlands. And then this side is the dark, which is the Luminous. Brioche creates patterning on both sides. So the shawl will be fully reversible. And like I said, it is just a big triangular shawl. It's looking circular on my needles, but it will be triangular when I finish. I just have done so little that I have it kind of on the, and I know, like I said, it's a little bit hard to see the pattern because the yarns are really close at this point. I'm hoping they will go in and out of close. So there'll be some parts where there's like striking contrast and some points where it's not as striking. So that is the Wrapped in Brioche shawl, and that is what I will be knitting for the next bit. I said I would have the sample done within a month, so I have lots of knitting to do, and I'm going to take these 2 with me to London because this will also be, this is much simpler in brioche. There is an increase, but it's kind of the same 4 rows over and over again. I still need the pattern with me right now, but it is not quite the same as the other, which has lots of traveling and knit 2-togethers and a whole, or not knit 2-togethers, but decreases and increases. This just has some simple increases. So this I ought to be able to concentrate on. And actually I think I'm going to take it to knit night with me tonight because of course the night before I leave and have to get packed and get everything done, I have a list a mile long. Of course I have to go to knit night, right? I missed knit night last week because the roads were super icy and I wasn't feeling great, and so I just stayed home. So that is all the knitting. I'm sorry this went so long. This was absolutely not my intention, but I guess it's been a week and a half, so I had lots to show you. The current spin, the fiber that I showed you last time, I'm almost done with the singles, but I'm about to leave again, so I will probably, hopefully have that finished and maybe another spin started by the time I see you again. If you have stuck with me this long, thank you. That was lovely. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I'm working on. You'll be seeing all of these for quite a bit more because I want to get all of them done in Finishuary. And if you'd like to join me, you can tag your project's Finishuary and we can try and finish a bunch of things that are on the needles. Either that you've just started or, and Finishuary can be projects that have been whips for 10 minutes or whips that have been whips for years. Just let's get them done and reclaim the needles. Or I will say that I am not at a point where I have anything currently on the needles that is that I'm not going to finish. But if you have anything that you have fallen out of love with, now would be a really good time to rip it and reclaim the yarn and the needles and get started on some things that you really do love. So the Selfish Knit Along is still going. That will finish at the end of January. That is I say knit along, but I mean craft along. Any crafts, post your photos in Ravelry. I don't know that anyone's going to have a ton of finishes for this month, so if you are holding off because you haven't finished anything, please go post pictures. I'm going to award prizes regardless, and if we don't have enough people who have finished things to draw from, then I will draw from everyone who has participated and shared photos in the thread. So that's it. I promise I'm really going. Until I see you next time, which will be in a week and a half, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I will see you next time. Bye.